Hey, it's New Year's Eve, and I'm all alone again, of course. What's up? It's the Culture Detective here, investigating your favorite movies, and today I'll be doing the final list for 2020. Maybe I'll do like a best anime of 2020 list, like somewhere in the future, but not now. This is the last one. So, best movies of 2020, specifically top 20. And yes, it is difficult for me to even find 20 movies this year, let alone 20 good movies. But after a lot of research and a lot of time spent actually watching these movies, I have arrived at this list. Now we have the honorable mentions, of course. I have to mention The Invisible Man, which is a pretty solid thriller movie with good performances. Yeah, it's a little formulaic, I guess, and it's not that memorable of a movie, but it's still not bad. And then there are movies which are said to be really good, but I haven't watched, and they're not even released until 2021 in the cinemas, and they include Nomadland by Chloe Zhao, which is supposed to be like a really beautiful, realistic story about Frances McDormand being a nomad. Um, and then we have Palm Springs, which is actually a movie released in 2020. And it's basically ReZero, the movie, or Bites the Dust, the movie, where characters they constantly live in the same time loop over and over again, like Groundhog Day, but comedic, as if Groundhog Day isn't comedic. Anyways, there's also a Pixar Soul, which I would also consider a 2021 release. I haven't watched it. If I ended up enjoying it, I will put it in my next year's list. And also The Father, which is released earlier this year in Sundance Festival, but now pushed all the way to next year. Wide release in the UK and the USA as well. I saw the trailer. Seems really, really interesting. And I mean, the cast is stacked. We got Anthony Hopkins, who is, as always, a fantastic actor, and Olivia Colman, who is also a really fantastic actress. And I can't wait to watch this film, but I just can't see it. So I don't know. I don't know. All right. Anyways, top 20, top 20, top 20. At number 20, I'm giving it to Guy Ritchie's The Gentleman, which is a really snappy, witty, sort of action comedy with a lot of style. Maybe too much at a few points, to a point where, okay, come on. But still, very stylish, very witty dialogues, and a pretty fun movie overall. At number 19, I'm giving it to First Cow, an A24 indie film by Kelly Reichardt. And this is a super duper slow paced movie where almost nothing happens, and it's a period film. And it's really, really artsy with its super neo realistic camera movements that are really still, lots of wide shots. And yes, it may not be everyone's cup of tea, but I still think this is a really humane and really beautiful story of friendship and also the American dream. And at number 17, I am giving it to the latest movie by David Fincher, Mank. Yes, while it is kind of an indulgent movie, and not a lot of people are going to like it because it's pretty much 1930s, 1940s cinema worshipping in this movie, I still think Mank has a lot of good acting. The plot is still kind of fun, even though, again, very indulgent, not all that engaging. I still think there's a lot of potential in this movie, and I think this movie's gonna be nominated for a few Oscars, definitely, because it's David Fincher. It's kind of well directed, actually, but there you go. Number 16, it is The Trial of the Chicago 7, written and directed. He directed this movie himself. Aaron Sorkin, the legendary Hollywood screenwriter Aaron Sorkin. The Trial of the Chicago 7 is a very solid and heartfelt movie about seven people on trial for protesting against the government for the Vietnam War and sort of inciting protests. And there are a lot of scenes that really, really hit me because I was also in a couple protests last year because of what's going on in Hong Kong. And it just hits me emotionally. But that being said, it's still a very, very Oscar bait kind of movie. A lot of scenes and montages are very Oscar baity, but that still doesn't take away from the fact that there are a lot of quality performances in this one. And number 14, I am giving it to it's 16. 16, The Devil All the Time by Antonio Campos. The Devil All the Time is also a really slow-paced movie where it's sort of separated into a lot of acts and different storylines, and they all kind of converge together at the end to form a really bleak and very depressing story about someone from the South who believes that the justice system and the society is flawed, and he has to sort of be a vigilante because of that. And a lot of beautiful shots in this one. I think Tom Holland's performance is really good, and Robert Pattinson as the crooked pedophile priest, pretty good performance as well. And it's a pretty good movie. What can I say? All right, top 15. From this point on, every movie is an 8 out of 10. Starting off, we have a documentary by Werner Herzog, and that is Fireball, Visitors from Darker Worlds. Werner Herzog, he's back with another fantabulous documentary about meteorites, their scientific and religious implications. And this documentary feels like a spiritual experience in and of itself because of how beautiful it's shot. The music is so heavenly for some reason, and it's such a pristine and graceful documentary. It's very beautiful, and Werner Herzog also approaches it with a really nice sense of Bavarian humor. So there you go. And number 14, of course I have to talk about this movie. It is Borat's subsequent movie film, of course by the one and only comedian Sacha Baron Cohen. Borat 2 is the sequel to Borat 1, which is released like a million centuries ago. And Borat 2, while it's not as funny as the first one, and it's more scripted than the first one. There's an actual narrative going on. But there are still a lot of ingenious, hilarious moments in this movie. And once again, this movie exposes the really rotten and the really corrupted side of America that a lot of people are refusing and avoiding to see, while a lot of people are so eager to expose. And this movie shows it all. And I really, really appreciate the fact that Sacha Baron Cohen put so much effort and hard work into this character. Really good movie. Yeah. All right, number 13. It is The Wolf of Snow Hollow by Jim Cummings. It is a really regular sort of horror thriller movie at first glance, but what's kind of cool about this movie is that it's kind of satirical at a few points. It's cliche for the sake of cliche, because there are actually a few moments of comedy in this movie. The characters are mostly likable. The pace is near flawless. It's just one really good and interesting scene after the other. We got some good performances here as well. Rest in peace, Robert Forster. And again, the plot is kind of cliche and it's kind of dumb. Oh my god, there's a werewolf. It's killing people. But there are a lot of twists and turns, and it's a really engaging story overall. Alright, number 12, I'm giving it to Rainey's Black Bottom, which is a period film set in 1927 about Rainey, played by Viola Davis. Brilliantly played by Viola Davis, such an underrated actress as a blues singer. and we also got Chadwick Boseman, who played a horn player, and together they were struggling because Chadwick Boseman's character was really, really ambitious, and he's trying to break the mold. And it's a really good period film. I don't know why, but ever since The Lighthouse and ever since The Witch, actually, I've already been pretty interested in period films. But on top of that, we got some legitimately amazing performances by Chadwick Boseman and Viola Davis. Rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. Really, really shocked me that even though he's dealing with stage 3 cancer, he still didn't stop acting. He still did what he loved to do, and it's just very admirable in my opinion. But yeah, it's a really memorable movie and really well directed as well. At number 11, I'm giving it to Charlie Kaufman's I'm Thinking of Ending Things. This is a really special movie because I totally didn't know what to expect even after I watched the trailer. And after watching the movie, I actually didn't know how to feel about it because it's such a weird movie. It's really difficult to interpret. At some points, it feels like an art movie for the sake of art because nothing made sense in the movie. But that's actually kind of the point once you realize what the real message of the movie is about. Still, it's not that enjoyable of a watch. There are still lots of confusing moments here and there that sort of botched my experience down, but still, the filmmaking is brilliant. A lot of really, really beautiful shots. What really impresses me the most about this movie is actually its symbolism. Again, if you don't understand why the movie is the way it is, you would not enjoy it at all. It's a very philosophical movie in a sense, but at the same time, not really. But you kind of have to use your brain if you really want to understand the movie, because there's one concept that explains it all, but the concept isn't actually included in the narrative of the movie. But once you understand that concept, then you'll see what's going on. It's really strange, but it's really good as well. Alright, 10 movies that I really love in 2020. At number 10, it is Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always by Eliza Hittman. This movie is about two teenagers from Pennsylvania crossing the state line, going to New York City because one of the main character wants to conduct an abortion. And it is a really hard-hitting movie that is incredibly realistic and humane. The way it's shot is so smooth and natural. It almost has a documentary vibe to it. Sure, the movie doesn't really show many good men because most of the male characters in this movie are usually characters who just wants to have sex and just wants to make out with women and just wants money, while the women in this movie are struggling. But that still didn't take away from my enjoyment of the movie. It's a really focused movie, just centered on these two female characters, and it is what it is. And it's hard hitting, it's beautiful, it's tear jerking, and it's really memorable. At number 9, I know this pick is going to be very polarizing because a lot of people actually hate this movie, but I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. The Five Bloods by Spike Lee. This movie at first seemed like a Vietnam War period movie, but actually turns out it is a guns blazing, bombs exploding action thriller movie with a lot of ridiculous plot in it, which is probably the biggest reason why a lot of people hate this movie. But for me personally, that doesn't take away from from my enjoyment of the movie. I still think it's really enjoyable. I still really like Spike Lee's very special style, the dolly shots, and the images and videos popping up on the screen. There are some really horrifying actual archive footage of the Vietnam War being shown on screen. And yes, you may take away from the movie a bunch of bombs exploding and guns shooting, but also the ultimate message of the movie isn't that, but it is anti-war. Why are we still hating each other? Why are we still starting wars on one another when all we can do is love and try to understand one another, which is the ultimate message of the movie, and it's really touching, honestly. There's also that one scene, that landmine scene. Holy crap, not a single scene in any movies I've seen this year made me sit on the edge of my seat so hard. I don't even know why did I care about those characters this much, but I actually ended up liking them. Alright, at number 8, I'm giving it to another documentary by the name of Feels Good Man. A documentary solely about Pepe the Frog, its origins, how it blew up on the internet, how it became sort of an alt-right symbol, and then how it kind of became a symbol of hope, and all the things in between. And it's a surprisingly entertaining documentary with very, very beautiful and creative animation. A lot of good interviews are being conducted here and there, and it's just a very, very insightful documentary. And the way it ended, again, given that I'm from Hong Kong and I've partaken in the political movements of Hong Kong last year, I was also really touched to see the ending of the documentary. But that aside, I still think it's a really entertaining and insightful documentary. So yeah, moving on, we have number 7, and that is Wolfwalkers, a cartoon by Cartoon Saloon. And Wolfwalkers is kind of formulaic and cliche if you think about it. It's kind of Disney, I know, but it sort of takes it with a different spin, and it has that really nice rustic medieval feel to it. The art style is really raw and rustic and primal as well. The story has a fun twist to it that makes it really, really wholesome, and I just really love the messages of family and friendship, but also tolerance in this movie. I think the voice acting is also really, really good in this movie for some reason. Sean Bean is in this movie as well. Check him out. And yeah. Number 6. Demon Slayer Mugen Uresha, or Demon Slayer Infinite Train. I know a lot of people will not include this movie in their lists because it's an anime movie. It's weird. But yeah. I've seen Demon Slayer Season 1. I like it, even though it's not that great. It's a 7 out of 10 for me. And we have Mugen Resha, or Mugen Train, the Infinite Train, where the entire movie focuses on one arc, where it's a train battle, and the entire movie is just one huge train battle, and it has lots of ups and downs. It's very intense, very suspenseful, great voice acting as always, beautiful animation from Ufotable as always, and yeah, it became like the number 1 anime movie in Japan, box office wise. So that's crazy. It surpassed Your Name and Spirited Away. That's crazy. And maybe if you're American, this is probably a 2021 movie, but this movie is actually released in Hong Kong in 2020. So, yay. Alright, now we have the top 5. Let's go. Number 5, I'm giving it to Tenet by Christopher Nolan. This movie is also quite polarizing. A lot of people love it, saying that it's an underrated masterpiece, and a lot of people say it's trash. I'm kind of in between. I don't think this is the best Nolan movie at all. I think this is far from the best Nolan movie. It's nowhere near Inception, Prestige, Dark Knight, Memento. It's nowhere near. It's not even as good as Dunkirk. But still, this movie is so cleverly written, and it's such a visual spectacle. I have to put it at number 5. Every single scene, almost every single scene, is very breathtaking. And again, a lot of scenes seem really confusing at first, but once you understand what the hell's going on, and you sort of compare what's going on in forwards time and backwards time, and you piece them together, my brain, it's melting. My brain is melting. That being said, the characters, not that likable, not that fleshed out. I get it. But when the story itself is this layered and this interesting and complex and creative, it's, I mean, not fleshed out characters aren't really a huge issue for me in this movie. And yeah, the opening scene is just spectacular with the concert scene, and then the ending scene is crazy as well. Yeah, Tenet. It's really thought provoking, and it has that rewatch value, which I love. All right, number 4, it is Mangrove from the Small Axe 5-parted anthology by Steve McQueen. Steve McQueen is one of the most underrated directors of our generation. He has made amazing movie after another amazing movie. Hunger, Shame, 12 Years a Slave, which is one of my favorite in 2010s. And now we have Small Axe, Mangrove, and then there's also Lover's Rock and Education and this and that. But Mangrove is the first one, and it really stands out because it is a simple but really powerful and hard-hitting movie about a black business owner being targeted and being crushed and oppressed by the justice system and the society. And yeah, I'm glad to see Steve McQueen still making amazing movies. The directing style is still really great, really mature directing style, very smooth, and it's really well written as well. At number 3, it is Minari by Lee Isaac Chung. Another year, another great Korean movie, and this time it's more Korean American, and this movie is about a Korean family migrated to the USA in the 1980s, in the South, in Alabama specifically, and trying to survive there. And while it seems like a really boring movie premise, actually it is very heartwarming, it is very wholesome, and it actually has a lot of ups and downs, which is unexpected. You may think that this movie is about racism. Not really. It's actually more about the American dream and how difficult it is for an immigrant to adapt to a new society and a new world, and how a family is having difficulties adapting to a new society, which is scary, again, because I'm actually pretty much going to be doing the same thing like next year when I migrate to USA, which may happen, I don't know. But yeah, it just speaks volumes to me, because I know I'm gonna migrate to the USA someday, and I don't know how life is like there. And this movie really hit me. And on top of that, it's a really emotional movie as well. The trailer itself is already very tear-jerking, already really emotional. The movie itself is beautiful, it is powerful, it is moving, and it is also really well shot. So number 3, here you go. Number 2, I'm giving it to Sound of Metal by Darius Martyr. I think that's his name. Darius Martyr, Sound of Metal. Now, Sound of Metal is a really simple movie about Riz Ahmed's character, Ruben, who lost his hearing after playing too much drums for a metal band duo with his girlfriend, played by Olivia Cook. And the movie is as simple as that. There are no antagonists in this movie, and throughout the whole movie, you just feel really bad for the guy, because the movie already immediately made Ruben's character likable in the second scene, and afterwards seeing him go through the struggles of not being able to hear, trying to save his own hearing, and then trying to accept the fact that his hearing is gone, it can't be saved, and then seeing him try to adapt into the deaf community and then trying to leave the deaf community is just a roller coaster ride. But ultimately, what's really beautiful and heartwarming about this movie is that there are no antagonists. The only actual antagonist of this movie is noise. It's noise. All Ruben's life is noise. Being a metal band drummer, all he does is making noise. But after losing his hearing, he started to realize that the world can be really beautiful too without noise, because you get to actually enjoy the silence and be in the moment, which is absolutely beautiful. The movie is also incredibly well paced. Not a single scene feels like a filler scene. I think there are 1,000 ways for the plot to turn bad, but the movie went none of those ways. It's solid, it's great, and it is fantastic. Now we move over to our number one spot, my personal favorite movie of the year. Drumroll, please. Druk. Druk, or Another Round by Thomas Vinterberg. This is a Danish movie, written and directed by Thomas Vinterberg, and it is a movie about 4 high school teachers trying to get drunk because they want to try out if 0.5% alcohol in their blood will make their lives better or not. And this is a brilliantly written film that's incredibly entertaining, very engaging, extremely well paced, and it is simultaneously about alcoholism, but also kind of about midlife crisis. And the characters are actually really likable. They have a lot of chemistry. Mads Mikkelsen's performance here is amazing. He really looks like he's about to snap at any given moment, and it really shows that in this movie. And I also love how this movie is written in a way it's really realistic. The idea of getting drunk for the sake of making your life better is kind of weird, but once you're in the main character's perspective, Martin, that's his name, you kind of understand why he wanted to do that, because his life as a teacher is failing a lot of his students, and the students' parents are complaining. His wife is not seeing him. His children is not respecting him. His life has become very boring, and he just desperately needs an escape from that. And there's only one escape: alcohol. And we really see him change, go through an arc, and reach a conclusion at the end, which is a little confusing, but also really satisfying as well, in a sense. And it's just very memorable, very engaging, very well shot as well, as expected of Thomas Vinterberg. But I think, most importantly, it's just a very engaging movie that just feels equal parts humane, equal parts hilarious and funny, but also equal parts realistic and grounded, which is really nice. So, yeah. None of these movies exceeded 9 out of 10 for me, by the way, which is the first time it has ever happened in a year. But I'm happy with what we have. So, yeah, what are your favorite movies of 2020? Comments below, let me know. And thanks for watching, and subscribe if you want more.